has everything in it. It has money, it has power, it has socialism, it has national security, world government, oil. It even has global warming. And yet, no one in the media is talking about it. It all revolves around an international agreement called the Law of the Sea, or the Lost Treaty. And even though we've been fighting it off since the days of Ronald Reagan, we are now closer to it than ever before, and the Senate is about to ratify it. The real story is that the only thing that will be lost if this treaty is ratified will be more of our sovereignty. It will kill you, but you never see it coming. They can actually have more power than our own Constitution.
In the next couple of days, President Bush is scheduled to resurrect the old Law of the Sea Treaty and ask the Senate to ratify it. He's already written to Senator Biden and asked him to hurry up and pass it. Now, this is the same treaty that Ronald Reagan rejected 25 years ago. He was so angry about this attack on our sovereignty that he fired the State Department personnel who had negotiated the treaty under the Carter administration.
One of the original creators of this treaty was a public supporter of one world government. She was a woman who saw Lost as a trial balloon for developing a, quote, common global constitution. We must wake up. The killers are inside the house. Our country and our sovereignty is being lost to socialists, globalists, elitists, and corporations. And it's happening right in front of our eyes.
I know the United States wants to be a constructive part of the international community, and I know that's a lot of the motivation to work with other countries, and our role and responsibility in this world is very different than any other country, and the expectations of us are very different, and the need to act independently, as we have seen many times in the last decade, is very important not only to us but the world itself. I believe that was Reagan's philosophy. I've heard him quoted today. It's interesting, his diaries have come out, and he said on Tuesday, June 29th of 1982, decided in the National Security Council meeting, will not sign Law of Sea Treaty even without seabed mining provisions. And he wanted us to go along with the treaty, obviously, and work with the international community, but recognize the dangers of signing up to this. I think the question before us is, do we want to submit the United States to another international body? But I think it is unreasonable for us, as we look at the other bodies that we're party of, to submit ourselves again to an international group. I think America and our fellow countrymen are deeply sensitive about it now. We saw that during the immigration debate. The emails and phone calls we got, a lot of them had nothing to do with immigration. They were concerned about our sovereignty, our borders. They were concerned about Congress not acting in their best interest and not really trusting us to act in the best interest. All of us get emails and phone calls about the North American Union that people are concerned about, or the NAFTA highway. And I would just contend to all of you, as we move forward with debating this, this is not a good time to bring something like this back up in front of the American people.
If the Senate ratifies this treaty, it will in effect constitute a financial bailout of a failing and dysfunctional UN bureaucracy. It would be a gross dereliction of duty for the United States Senate to vote on this treaty without getting to the bottom of the allegations of corruption and mismanagement in the ISA.
How close do you believe we are, Senator, to losing America as we know it?
We stopped it in '04 only because no one knew what it was. It passed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee 16-0. So it would have been ratified, okay. But we stopped it by having hearings.
Recently, some senators thought they could reform immigration when the American people weren't looking. Fortunately, we found out in time how bad such reforms would be for us and for our country. Now, some senators think they can sneak a treaty past the American people that will have even more serious costs for our country. Ronald Reagan understood these dangers and rejected the Law of the Sea Treaty 25 years ago. Now, it's time to tell your senators to reject it too.
I have some real concerns about the treaty, and almost all of them revolve around the fact that it does have a binding, or has several binding dispute resolution mechanisms. As I read it, they try to choose the arbitrators, and if they can't, somebody else, the king of the law of the sea land, chooses 3 of the 5 arbitrators. Isn't that the case?
The glass in the law of the sea convention is neither half, it's not all full and it's not all empty. We would try to be very careful on that. As to the arbitration, what you describe is correct. And there, the appointing authority, if agreement couldn't be reached, would be the Secretary General of the United Nations.
I think that is a recipe for disaster for us.
This treaty would set up an international tribunal headquartered in Hamburg, which would resolve disputes and be superior to our own Supreme Court. It would be anti-American, like these other tribunals, such as the World Trade Organization. Unfortunately, the Bush administration is using the United States Navy to lobby for this treaty. Now, don't pay any attention to what they say. You know we have civilian control of the military. There's no way the Navy can oppose a Bush policy. They're trying to tell us that they need this treaty to do what the Navy has to do. This is an insult. Our American Navy can go anywhere we want on the high seas, and we don't need to ask some international authority.
And there is a separate Article 213, which is entitled Enforcement with respect to pollution from land-based sources. If everything about land-based pollution is purely feel-good, hortatory, why would there be an article entitled Enforcement with respect to pollution from land-based sources?
Many of the pollution provisions of the treaty are what we call framework provisions. It's what I mean when I call the convention a constitution for the oceans.
But again, it seems odd to put a feel-good provision like that with the title Enforcement with respect to pollution from land-based sources, because this treaty does have enforcement mechanisms. And I just have one article here. It's titled Potential Causes of Action for Climate Change Damages in International Fora, the Law of the Sea Convention. And he says, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is a promising instrument through which such action might be taken, given its broad definition of pollution to the marine environment and the dispute resolution mechanisms contained within its provisions.
I'm just confused. We know there's already creeping jurisdiction within the authority of this treaty. We've seen that they claim jurisdiction on land pollution in Great Britain. And we know what happens when we turn authority over to a third party, that what we think is their mission will soon be greatly expanded all over the world to the disadvantage of the United States.
These proliferating bureaus with their thousands of regulations have cost us many of our constitutional safeguards. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course.
And ask the President not to submit the Law of the Sea Treaty. And if he does, it will diminish whatever he has left of conservative support in this country.
This is the first time now the UN will be able to actually levy a tax. Is that true?
Yeah, what it is the Law of the Sea Treaty, I think, is the greatest single raid on our sovereignty in my lifetime anyway.
It is global socialism. It is world government. It is worse than the United Nations. This International Seabed Authority would have the power over 9/10 of the world's surface. It would have sovereign control over all the riches at the bottom of the oceans. It would have the power to impose an international tax disguised under the words assessments, fees, and permits.